This movement is proudly brought to you by Shelter Zimbabwe. Shelter Zimbabwe. We nurture our society.
Good day, viewers. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Matters. My name is Rufaro Wojeri, and today with me in the studio is Engineer Clifford Chigwanda. Engineer, welcome to Real Estate Matters.
Thank you.
So Engineer Clifford Chigwanda is a resident engineer here at Shelter Zimbabwe, and he heads our operations. And today we're going to be talking about the commercial real estate market, especially here in Zimbabwe. So, Engineer, what I've noticed in Zimbabwe over the past 5 years is that there's been a concentration on construction, mainly looking at your roads, bridges, and to some extent we have seen a boom in the construction of residential housing units. Do you feel that much has been done on the part of commercial real estate? And in commercial real estate, really, we're looking at flats, multi-family accommodation. We're looking at skyscraper buildings. We're looking at warehouses. Do you feel like we have done enough to address that part, or we have just concentrated on the infrastructure and to some extent residential?
Thank you. I would not say we've done enough in terms of commercial real estate, because when one looks at the housing backlog on the market, it's pretty alarming.
Yeah. 225,000 houses target according to NDS1 by 2025. So you can see how much we need to do.
Yes. But on the other hand, I can pretty understand why investors are focusing on infrastructure. I think there is better return on investment in infrastructure compared to commercial real estate.
Oh, is that so? Or isn't it also that perhaps you need to start by setting off the infrastructure, then perhaps in the future look at the commercial real estate?
That's another point, because without infrastructure, there is no point investing in commercial real estate, because commercial real estate depends on infrastructure.
So you feel like this is a good stepping stone? Perhaps in the next 5 to 10 years, we could be seeing more development on the commercial. Is that the sense that you get, or it's just that maybe it's going to just end with the infrastructure bid?
I think there is scope. There is hope that investors will pick up the market in commercial real estate, given that the infrastructure is in place or is being worked on. Yes.
So the infrastructure is a condition that then attracts investors
in commercial real estate.
Yeah. Then just looking at Zimbabwe in comparison with maybe just the peers in the region, for us to make a meaningful and a fair comparison, do you feel like looking at our commercial real estate, we are there, or we are way lagging behind, which also then brings an opportunity for investors going into the long term? How do you see us? Do you feel like, in as much as we are not concentrating more on the commercial real estate, maybe the commercial real estate that we already have suffice for the 15 million or so people that are in Zimbabwe? Or you feel that we are a bit backward and we need to catch up? Which sense do you share on that?
I think we are lagging behind. our peers, particularly in the SADC region. When you look at the infrastructure that you find in South Africa, when you look at the infrastructure that is taking place in Zambia, Tanzania, we are way, way behind. So there is some catching up to do.
One thing though, not taking away what you have said, that it's important that we make sure that the infrastructure is there to support. I'm failing to understand why we are not seeing so much investment in the commercial real estate when we are seeing investment mostly in the self-funded residential real estate. Because in another episode, we were talking about why is it that we find that properties in Zimbabwe cost too much, which to some extent mean that the return also in investing in real estate locally is on the upside. So why are we not seeing investors being drawn to come and seek the higher returns in getting into commercial real estate, especially if you look at the state of the capital city? The capital city, yes, here and there, we're now starting to see some cranes and some buildings outside, but not much activity has been happening over the past 10 years. So why are we not seeing foreign capital flowing into Zimbabwe to make sure that it pushes Zimbabwe to the levels that our peers are? Or put differently, what it is that we are not doing or we are doing that is separating us from our peers that you talked about, your Tanzania, your South Africa, etc.
My answer to that would be the lack of foreign direct investment is a result of what I would call a disabling environment, economic environment. Investors are naturally risk averse.
They wouldn't want to put their money in an economy like Zimbabwe that has a lot of risks. Currency automatically becomes part of the risk that you're talking about. Inconsistency also in terms
Government
of policy,
policy.
Becomes. So then, how are we going to transform to make sure that we service this commercial real estate in Zimbabwe so that it gets to, do you feel like without foreign direct investment, using local investments, we can do it to such an extent? Or there is no way? We need the international foreign capital to flow in and help us make sure that we escalate our commercial real estate in Zimbabwe?
I would want to argue that even the Zimbabweans who are rich would still be affected by risk by the same matters. When you look at people like the Strive Masiwas, yes, they are investing in Econet, but I think they could do more. But because of this environment, which is, I would call it toxic, the investment is not as high as it should be.
Yeah, so that becomes a challenge, because in as much as what you're saying is for us to then attract that investment, especially in our commercial real estate, then there is a need for policy to be a bit consistent, to work on the currency. But even though without that, isn't there any capital that is willing to take that risk on a country like Zimbabwe, considering that perhaps there are above average returns? I'm just thinking out loud, because at the end of the day, something needs to be done to make sure that the commercial real estate in Zimbabwe moves and catches up with the rest of the world. But you don't have to answer that, and we'll leave it for the viewers to think. I personally think there is a way to make sure that the commercial real estate in Zimbabwe catches up with the rest of the world. I'm impressed with what I'm seeing on the residential and on the infrastructure, which we will talk about. And I feel like there is scope, because I also argue that the reason why we see a lot of, we see houses and other properties in Zimbabwe on the high side is merely because we don't have much of other alternative investments to put money, which are sober in the sense that when inflation comes, they are resistant to it. But getting to the infrastructure bid, which in my opinion, I'm not an expert in this field, but I've seen that we have been doing quite significantly in terms of the roads. Do you feel like we've done enough, or there is still scope for us to do even more when you're looking at your big infrastructure developments, your roads, your bridges, dams, etc.?
A fair amount has been done, I must admit. When you look at the upgrading of the Bad Bridge, Harare Road, Chirundo, Harare, I don't think it's done yet. I would want to argue that government probably should focus on these major roads that link us with the international market. In terms of urban areas, I think you know the story. Most roads, particularly in the capital, all potholed. There is absolutely no investment there. Again, I think it has something to do with the political environment, which pits the opposition as councils against central government, which is the government. So this fight for investment capital is detrimental to investment in the urban areas.
Yeah, I see. So, like I said, I'm by no means any expert. I once had an argument, and I want to put it across to you to help me determine if this makes sense. I once had an argument that instead of the way we name our roads, wouldn't it make sense to name roads according to the, I don't know if it's developer who has done the road, so that they will feel that the brand of their company is at risk, and they will make roads that are more lasting. I want you to help me with your engineering experience here. Does that make sense? And more importantly, why is it that there are some roads that were built 5 years ago, but if you tell somebody that this road was built 5 years ago, that person will not believe you because of the state of the state in which the road now is 5 years after? So why is it that we are seeing such kind of roads? And if we were to use this approach that was suggested to say the contractor who's doing the road, contractor is the right word, the contractor who's doing the road, the name of the road will be named after him. Do you see scope in that?
I don't think there is, because the contractor is a service provider. On the issue of the quality of roads that you spoke about, the main problem is the specifications that we're using. I think those are short-term. That is why you see that, as you said, the road that was built maybe 10 years ago compared to the one that was built 5 years ago, depreciating at higher rates because we are using a completely different specification.
Why is that so?
It is so because I would say limited budget. One is trying to achieve a certain specification with a limited budget, and therefore there is a tendency, or there is, I would call it a tendency
to try and shortcut.
To take shortcuts.
But you as engineers, isn't it incumbent upon you to make sure that you properly advise whoever is doing these roads that you might want to do this shortcut, but it's not going to take you anywhere. Rather, we should implement the highest quality, for lack of a better word, to make sure that we develop a product that is durable. Because to be quite honest, I know of roads that were built 5 or so years ago that you can never believe that this road was built 5 years ago. So what role do you play as technocrats in ensuring that you advise against such shortcuts?
Unfortunately, engineers are not given that latitude to go and warn the powers that be that what you're doing is not sustainable. Even if one does, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. That advice is not taken on board.
Yeah, interesting, and said at the same time. To our viewers, I think this is a good time for us to take a quick break. We'll be back.
This moment is proudly brought to you by Shelter Zimbabwe. Shelter Zimbabwe. We nurture our society. A very small percent of smart people can predict what the future holds and invest wisely. Investments that guarantee a secure future and generational wealth. Real estate is one investment that can never go wrong, especially when dealing with a tried and tested company. As Shelter Zimbabwe, having been in the property development business for over 3 decades, we derive satisfaction in giving our valued clients smart housing solutions, providing modern and sustainable built-up residential spaces of unsurpassed quality. Be a smart investor. Discover and experience the joy of owning a home. Yes, where others see just land, we see not only homes, but a lifestyle so desirable and worth living. A redefinition of urban living in a modern, urban, and serene environment. Witness the beauty of a worthwhile and secure investment by a team which brings it all together and dedicated to achieving extraordinary results. With us, you can get a service stand where you can build your dream home to suit your unique taste and style, as we offer an assortment of high, medium, and low-density housing options. We are there to create endless possibilities. Our ultimate desire being to build homes specifically designed with you in mind, to give you the luxury and comfort you deserve. With 1-bedroom apartments for young professionals, 2-bedroom apartments for growing families, and spacious 3-bedroom apartments with ample space for maximum expression. At Shelter Zimbabwe, your dream home is just a step away. This This movement is proudly brought to you by Shelter Zimbabwe. Shelter Zimbabwe. We nurture our society.
Welcome back to Real Estate Matters. Engineer, before the break, we're talking about why we are not seeing so much investment in our commercial real estate. And we also talked about why is it that we are seeing, for lack of a better word, less quality roads. In some instances, a road that was built 5 years ago is no longer looking like a road that was built 5 years ago. And you're explaining to the viewers that sometimes we're using substandard material to build that roads, even against the advice from professionals that we should use A, B, C, such material. And what I want us to talk about in this segment is the whole process of transforming virgin land into service distance. You know, it's something that amazed me, the whole process the first time I heard, and I believe that our viewers out there would probably want to understand the whole process, how it works. So the moment you get virgin land, what are the things that you do to it until you get to a position where somebody's ready to build?
Okay. After receiving a piece of virgin land, the first process is to do what we call a survey. What we mean by survey is a land surveyor comes on board. They do what we call pegging.
Pegging.
Yes. Pegging involves separating a piece of land to determine where you're going to put residential stands, where you're going to put schools, where you're going to put roads, where you're going to put water and sewerage reticulation.
Okay. So this is done by the surveyor?
This is done by the land surveyor.
The land surveyor, okay, okay. So does it mean the literal translation that I imagine, whereby you put something to show that, like a peg to say that this is where the school, or it has another meaning, another technical meaning?
It's literal. What the land surveyor does is he actually puts a steel peg in the ground, and this steel peg is concreted so that it doesn't move. So if you're looking at a residential stand, or any stand for that matter, normally you would put 4 corner pegs that then define the stand in terms of measurement. So if you're looking at a 300 square meter stand, for example, it could be 15 by 20. So you're putting a peg to determine where the 15-meter dimension is and where the 30-meter dimension is.
Interesting. I have this question. I think it might sound stupid, but I think some of the viewers would also want to know. So is it a process where they actually go on the ground and put all the pegs, or it's maybe a big document where it is done initially before works on the ground are done? How does
initially this is done in the office?
Oh, okay.
But then the beneficiaries, when they eventually possess their land, they want to see the physical pegs. So somebody has to go, after doing office work, somebody has to go on site and put these pegs in the ground, so that whoever his beneficiary is, when he comes and says, look, my stand is stand number 4, you actually go on site and show them the 4 pegs that define his stand number 4.
Interesting. And after putting the pegs?
After putting in the pegs, the design engineers must then come and tell you, or they must, based on the survey, they must tell you what type of roads you are going to put in there, what type of pipes in terms of size you are going to put in there for water and sewerage reticulation.
What determines the types of roads that are going to be put in there? Is it
The
the
type
soil?
of roads is determined by what we call traffic counts. Strictly speaking, one is supposed to determine how many cars of what type are going to traffic that road. And then that's what determines the size of the road as well as the specification, the pavement design.
It doesn't have anything to do with the soil or the rocks, or it's essentially the estimate of the amount of load that is going to...
Correct. But that determines the pavement design. The soil is what makes the pavement. So that plays a role as well. It's not discounted.
Okay. So after roads, are people now ready to start building, or there's still some of the things that need to be done?
Once the roads are done and the infrastructure is all in.
What's infrastructure?
Infrastructure also includes water and sewerage reticulation.
Okay.
So you need your roads, you need your water, you need your sewerage.
You probably want to talk to us a little bit about sewerage. How does it work exactly, the whole process? And is it done before the roads, after the roads, or you can do it anyhow?
It's best to done it before the roads. It's best to do it before the roads. For the simple reason that once you surface your roads, some of the sewer pipes do cross roads. And you don't want to dig up a road that is already surfaced. So
I've always had this question, engineer. Where does all the sewer that individual houses are connected to, where does it go?
We construct what we call sewage treatment works. So all the sewage from the houses ends up at these sewage treatment works. The sewage treatment works are a facility that biodegrades whatever is thrown into it from the residents. At the end of this process, you get what we call treated sewage effluent, which is basically water.
And the solids?
The solids remain behind. Solids are usually biodegradable. So you have chemicals, you have worms that take out all the solids. Except for the non-biodegradable stuff like the sand that is used in washing pots. That is usually disposed at what we call the grid channels.
Engineer, are you telling me that by the time it reaches, you called it sewerage treatment works,
yeah.
Everything will have been dissolved?
No. The biodegradation takes place at the plant. That's what it is there for.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So you receive all your solids from the sewage. When it gets to the plant, most of it gets biodegraded at this plant. That's the purpose.
Okay. Then there's treated water.
Sewage effluent. It's called treated sewage effluent.
Which is liquid in form.
It's not potable water. It's dirty water, but it's dirty water that you can actually discharge to the natural water courses. In other words, if you are not recycling treated sewage effluent, the normal process is you lead it to a river or to a natural water course, and then it joins the river.
Doesn't it then contain the
Bacteria?
Contaminate
That's why it's called treated sewage effluent.
So once it gets to a river, it won't contaminate the river?
No.
Oh, yeah. Well,
the quality is so good that in many other countries, it's actually recycled. Many people use it to water gardens, to water their flowers, to water lawns.
What you can't just do is to cook with it or to drink it?
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So once you have sewerage and you have roads,
you have your water.
You have your water. So water pipes are also put in conjunction with sewer. Is that the case?
They usually run side by side.
Side by side.
Mm. So, except that sewerage is deeper than water.
Okay. So once you are done with that, what's the next step?
You can give beneficial occupation to the person who has bought their stand. They can then start building because all the services are there. They can access their stand, they've got water, they've got sewerage. So they are ready to go.
So engineer, you're telling me that the process of transforming virgin land into a ready-to-build stand essentially are three things. You have to peg, you have to do the land survey, 4 things in fact. You have to do the land survey, then you do the peggings. Once you're done with the peggings, you are better off starting by putting the sewer and water pipes. Once you're done with that, you do your roads. Once you're done with roads, it's ready for occupation. So why are we not seeing so much developments? Or it's just that you're simplifying it by saying it, but maybe in actually doing it, the process can then take years to do it.
It's expensive, very expensive. To construct a 1 kilometer road, you probably need close to, depending on the size, you probably need close to 1.2 million.
Wow. Wow.
It's a very expensive process.
Yeah, I can see. And then so all those amounts then gets factored into the ultimate beneficiary of the stand who will be buying the stand. Wow, interesting. Each time I hear this process, I feel like I'm hearing it for the first time, and it's fascinating for me because as a financial analyst, I always feel like the moment we have more of these structures where land is being developed from being virgin land into actual residential stands before they become houses, it's value addition, and it's something that leads significantly to an increase in our GDP. But over that, it also has a huge multiplier impact on the economy, because think about all the companies that are going to be providing the services that you're talking about, or the whole pipes that you're talking about, everything that is involved in making sure that the road is done. You're telling me that it costs approximately $1 to $1.2 million to construct a kilometer of road. So the moment we do more of that, the multiplier effect on the economy is huge. And yeah, that's why I'm really excited about the whole real estate market, and I thought our viewers out there would be interested in knowing the whole process from you, Engineer. Engineer, I think this has been a very interesting conversation with you. Thank you very much for taking time to join us on Real Estate Matters and to share your knowledge with our viewers out there. To our viewers out there, thank you for watching this other episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our page. Until next time, take good care.
This moment was proudly brought to you by Shelter Zimbabwe. Shelter Zimbabwe. We nurture our society.